I think the thing that I aspire to do is make someone experience story in an intimate way, you know, in a first-hand way, and that fascinates me, whether I can put you in the shoes of a serial killer or whether I can make you think you're a superhero. Like, that's a wonderful thing, if I could bring that to people. And then I can not only be telling a story and hopefully entertaining you, but also I can maybe be bringing understanding into one's heart of all kinds of decision-making processes. The biggest advice I ever give young filmmakers is, like, pick the right projects and take it seriously, because you don't want to end up in a bad marriage. You don't want to be like idealistic and say I could change their minds. Maybe you can't, you know? And if you can't, then you're on that ride. So it was a wonderful experience. I don't think it's always that way, but because of the fact that there was such clarity about what we were doing, I feel like it's more like dating than it is like, hey, buy my pitch, or it's serious. It's a serious commitment. You are seriously signing on to the same thing. So I had almost done other big movies and had seen that very little disagreements can mean, wow, I'm not the right director for what you want to do after all. And so when I was meeting with them at that point, I was really cautious. And at first, when I first was meeting with them, they wanted to do something different. And I was like, it's a shame, but I don't think we are the right match. You have to do what you have to do, and that's not quite right. By the time that they came back and they had realized they wanted to do something which was very similar to what I'd been saying I wanted to do for a long time, it was a much different conversation, because then they were like, we really want to do that now. And I was like, you really want to do this? Because we only have X amount of time, and that's exactly what I would want to do. Yes, so I was extremely welcome. You know, like, I was extremely welcome. I was very supported because all of that was behind us.
When I look at the monitor, I'm seeing what's going to be on the screen, you know, almost always. You, hardly ever. What is that like?
You know what's amazing? I have always thought that the writer in me was who made the director in me any good, right? Because it's the writer in me that really crossed all those bridges in my room in the dark, you know, where you wrote the scene one way and then you realized, no, that wouldn't work. And then you wrote the scene another way and you really envisioned it, right? So this becomes this grand exercise in that, which really is, it's funny, this is the hardest thing about the challenge of making these movies, not the special effects and not the things. The hardest challenge is keeping the map in your head and not losing faith, right? So the writer in me has to, I think, it's absolutely imperative that you have your script done and you think it's great. I don't understand how people do it when things are changing. I don't know how you could keep track of it. I'm not a believer in that. I think that's I'm not a believer in studios doing it. I wish they would stop doing it. Get your shit together and get your script written before you start making a movie. And it drives me nuts. So we did very thorough writing. And then every single day, you have to have faith in the writer in you, and then in the artist and the artists that you worked with to make a plan, that the plan's gonna work. But let me tell you, it's absolutely fascinating to have to wait so long to see it come together. This was such a complicated film that even in the middle, the studio and people were like, I don't know about these things. I was like, you can't judge it yet. We don't have the effects in. So it looks stupid now. It looks stupid now, but you have to wait. Carrying that is very lonely and it's very hard. That's the hardest thing about it. And you could blow that day at any point through inattention. So it's also, if you don't stay absolutely vigilant towards the small details, you will run out of time and never be able to make that shot look cool. So it's wild that way.
How much time did you have?
You're
about to give an answer that's going to make me not feel sorry for you.
2.5 years.
Yeah, go to hell.
But and lots of money.
This is an old question from the first film, but how did you find Gal?
I didn't. You know, it's funny, I am the most obsessive caster, particularly after casting Charlize in Monster and it making perfect sense to me and not making sense to other people. I'm very, very particular about it. And it was the most magical thing in the world. I had told Warner Brothers I wanted to do Wonder Woman in 2004 and kept talking to them throughout the years. And then all of a sudden, and it just kept not working out. And all of a sudden they announced that Zack Snyder had cast Wonder Woman, and my heart sank. I thought, like, how could you, if you're just putting her in a smaller part in your movie, how could he cast Wonder Woman? But he did the most incredible job in the world in the fact that he looked for someone outside of this country, because I don't think I would have. I think I would have cast an American, and literally she was made to play this role. There's nobody better in the whole wide world, and so it's an incredible thing, and it's something that happens in these tent poles where there are sometimes things that you're used to making every decision, and then these genius things will come in the side door, and you have to be excited. You have to be willing to acknowledge, like, that's the better thing. Making Monster actually seemed like a bad idea, a scary idea. It wasn't a sure thing. The funding was all over the place, but one day the door opened for me, and I got lucky with the outcome. And similarly, making Thor now, the door has opened again, and it doesn't always open. It was a long and rocky road. I think that from the time that I wanted to start directing, and by the time to the time that I actually did start directing, it was about 12 years. I went undergraduate, then I was a camera person for 7 years. Then I went to graduate school. I spent 2 years at graduate school really I stopped working, took out student loans, and thought about what kind of films I wanted to make and how I wanted to do them, and honed in on practicing everything I could to do that. The most educational stuff that I did was listening to other people and how they did it, or having access to help of how to do it and talking about how to do it. I always say to struggling filmmakers, it's very much about pushing on a door that won't open, but one day the door cracks open and a moment happens. To push an actor to do work that they're capable of, yes. To inflict trauma, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I've had this argument with other people before where it's like, I am not here to bring trauma into people's life. So my job as a director is to conjure the best out of other people within what they have already to work with, and maybe new scenarios like cold, or maybe I am pushing them in towards cold and things like that. But I've always thought that was not for me. I've heard about those things about lying to people or really tricking people or messing with them, and I'm like, that's not cool for me. There's a line in the sand of where I'm willing to go. I learned over the years a couple of things. One is never note the actors right away, because sometimes they haven't realized. Like, they came in with something and they meant it to do something, didn't do it. So give them a chance to see what they were trying to do. But then, like, I've definitely learned, particularly with actors, unless there's a really clear reason, like you can't give away that spoiler with that line. I always try it, and it's a constant collaboration. It's constantly something I didn't think of, and then you're seeing, oh, okay, cool. Oh, I see what you're right. That's a way I wasn't looking at it.
What would you say to a screenwriter who really wants to write an action film, a superhero film?
Yeah.
But doesn't have a reputation as as an action guy. What would you say to them?
We pulled in my friend Dave Callahan to work with Jeff Johns and I on this one, and he wasn't known for writing superhero films. He'd written a really funny comedy. I think a great story is a great story. Here's what I love about these superhero films. Mm-hmm. They are the grand classic tradition of storytelling, a la Greek myths. They are a universal character that you can tell any story through. So the only thing that I think matters is embracing the fun of what it is, and knowing you're making a superhero film. And then anybody would want to hire a great writer. But I wish I could say to myself, this is going to be so much more fun than you think. Because now I love it. Like, I genuinely like the joy that you get in those moments where something magic happens, and like, I think I didn't even think that was going to happen.